A reading from the book of Numbers. The Lord said to Moses in the desert of Paran, "Send men to reconnoiter the land of Canaan, which I am giving the children of Israel. You shall send one man from each ancestral tribe, all of them princesses." After reconnoitering the land for 40 days, they returned, met Moses and Aaron and the whole congregation of the children of Israel in the desert of Paran at Kadesh, made a report to them all, and showed the fruit of the country to the whole congregation. They told Moses, "We went into the land to which you sent us. It does indeed flow with milk and honey, and here is its fruit. However, the people who are living in the land are fierce, and the towns are fortified and very strong. Besides, we saw descendants of the Anakim there. Amalekites live in the regions of Negev. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwell in the highlands, and the Canaanites along the seacoast and the banks of the Jordan." Caleb, however, to quiet the people toward Moses, said, "We ought to go up and seize the land, for we can certainly do so." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We cannot attack these people. They are too strong for us." So they spread discouraging reports among the children of Israel about the land they had scouted, saying, "The land that we explored is a country that consumes its inhabitants, and all the people we saw there are huge, veritable giants. The Anakim were a race of giants. We felt like mere grasshoppers, and so we must have seemed to them." At this, the whole community broke out with loud cries, and even in the night the people wailed. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked assembly grumble against me? I have heard the grumblings of the children of Israel against me. Tell them, 'By my life, says the Lord, I will do to you just what I have heard you say. Here in the desert shall your dead bodies fall. 40 days you spent in scouting the land. 40 years shall you suffer for your crimes, 1 year for each day. Thus you will realize what it means to oppose me. I, the Lord, have sworn to do this to all this wicked assembly that conspired against me. Here in the desert they shall die to the last man." Verbum Domini. Remember us, O Lord, as you favor your people. We have sinned, we and our fathers. We have committed crimes. We have done wrong. Our fathers in Egypt considered not your wonders. But soon they forgot his works. They waited not for his counsel. They gave way to craving in the desert and tempted God in the wilderness. They forgot the God who had saved them, who had done great deeds in Egypt, wondrous deeds in the land of Ham, terrible things at the Red Sea. Then he spoke of exterminating them, but Moses, his chosen one, withstood him in the breach, to turn back his destructive wrath.
Alleluia, alleluia. Dominus vobiscum. Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Matteum. At that time, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman of that district came and called out, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not say a word in answer to her. His disciples came and asked him, "Send her away, for she keeps calling out after us." He said in reply, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the woman came and did him homage, saying, "Lord, help me." He said in reply, "It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." Then Jesus said to her in reply, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed from that hour. Verbum Domini. Today's reading from the book of Numbers is a major turning point in the history of the desert wanderings. The people had been led out of Egypt. They didn't always like freedom. As we've heard many times, they certainly did complain. Now we don't have any water. Now we don't have any bread. And the Lord kept helping them. And then they finally get to Sinai. They make the covenant. And they spend 2 years at Sinai, which is not a bad place to stay if you're in the Sinai Peninsula, because it's on a plateau and it's not quite as hot as the lowlands. So they stay there. They build the temple, the tent, and they receive the laws of sacrifice, worship, morality, all of this. They head toward their goal. Their goal was not the desert. Their goal was the land of promise that had been promised them back to their ancestor, Abraham, and then Isaac and Jacob. And now, finally, after 400 years of living in Egypt, part of which was in slavery, after all that time, they're at the door, the threshold of their whole goal. They say, we don't want to go there. Those people are tougher than we are. We're little guys. They're big. Good land. Yeah, you were right about that. The real estate looks great. But we don't want to go there because we're scared. And what is key is that this 2-year plus period of learning to grow in their relationship with God, this time of faith that should have been growing, still has not taken hold. And in fact, they did have a very important point. When you look at the archaeological remains of the Canaanites, you see that they were far advanced over the Israelites. The Canaanites had an advanced late Bronze Age culture. They were certainly ready for when the Iron Age would come, which was right about the same period. Within 100 years, the Iron Age began. And the Israelites were Bronze Age sort of, but also still a lot of Stone Age technology. I mean, they're way behind these advanced Canaanites. So they're afraid. Some of the city walls were excellently built. You can still see ruins at Megiddo and other places. Hatzor was a very large city. So they're afraid. But here's where the problem comes. And this is a basic human problem that in our own age of moving away from faith, we are reviving the same issue. Namely, the Israelites make themselves the measure of what's going to happen. We're small. Well, yes, of course you are. But that's not the point. The point is, God is bigger than you or your enemies. And you are so focused on your smallness in comparison to them that you are preventing yourself from making the act of faith that Caleb and Joshua were able to make after seeing the land. Caleb and Joshua trusted we can do this by God's power. And it will be Caleb and Joshua who 40 years later are the only two to survive going into the land. Not even Moses will go into the land until what we celebrated yesterday. The Transfiguration is his first time in the Holy Land. But up to that point, he couldn't go. And the various ways in which they show a lack of faith, especially at this key turning point, prevents them from being able to go in. Now, in terms of our own times, we have to see that there are similar kind of opposition. And we're also going to take the passage here and the passages that will be coming up over the next weeks about the time when they eventually did, this generation died off after 40 years in the desert, and a new generation comes along and they do conquer the land. And we're going to look at this from another perspective. We don't see this as an absolute historical norm. Rather, we filter these episodes of the conquest through the New Testament. We're going to include the faith of Jesus Christ and his teachings as a way to filter this, very much the way the fathers of the church have done from the earliest times. Origen, Augustine, Ambrose, and so many others understand that we are not going to go out as an army and try to conquer people. We are rather going to see that our struggle is a spiritual struggle against forces that are very frequently far greater than we. Saint Sixtus, whom we celebrate today, was the Pope of Rome. He was elected in 257. He only reigned 1 year because being elected Pope was a death sentence through that period of the Roman persecution. And the Emperor Valerian had revived persecution. It had gone down for a little bit, and now it was revived under Valerian. And part of his new order was every bishop, priest, and deacon was automatically to be executed. So he was caught celebrating Mass in a catacomb, and he and the deacons with him were executed. And 3 days later, St. Lawrence, the deacon, was executed. So this was part of the pattern. However, who won? Who won that spiritual battle? The Roman Empire? When was the last time you saw Roman troopers walking around Europe? It was the faith in Christ that overcame. They didn't focus on, we're just a few little Christians. We don't have an army. We're not going to raise an army. But we are going to preach the gospel. And that faith that persisted through the martyrdoms. And the martyrdoms would continue over the next 50 years. Until finally, after Diocletian, they stop. Constantine brings them to an end. That conclusion of the martyrdoms leads to the conquest of the Roman Empire by Christianity, not by arms, but by preaching the gospel. And we today have to keep in mind that the forces of secularism and atheism are certainly very strong. Certainly, they have a lot of influence in media. Today, we see it in government, that the government puts the rights of the thrill, the rights to change sexual morals, morals about life and death for babies, morals about life and death for the elderly, morals in regard to the use of drugs. We can't stop it, so we'll just make it legal. These are new rights of the thrill instead of the rights that were given to us in the Constitution and rights that belong to human nature, such as freedom of religion. That they will attack as they try to force us to go along with sins like sterilization, contraception, and abortion, to force us to pay for sin so they can drag us to hell. And we see that they go against the rights of the press, free speech, rights, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment rights to privacy, 10th Amendment rights for the states. All of that's under attack while they say, but you have a right to these thrills that end up enslaving you. And it's just like the Israelites here who wanted to go back to Egypt. Oh, it was better being a slave than trying to fight these Canaanites. And the various forces in our culture say, yes, go for the rights of these thrills that enslave you and make you addicted, instead of your rights that give you freedom to act well and morally, and the freedom to proclaim the gospel. So in the face of that, what looks like the Anakim, the great giants, what looks like powerful forces, stronger forces of the Bronze Age and so on, we are going to say, we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. I don't look at how weak I am, except just to remind myself of proper perspective. But I look at the power of who God is. And that's what I depend on.